Can the new Marvel Imperial comic save the publishing company? I'm obviously using this as a bit of an iteration, but of course there is the common truth that Marvel isn't exactly on the top of its game right now, and there is a substantial question as to whether or not it can bounce back within the next few years. Is it entirely possible, though, that the Imperial comic could be that launching point? Considering this comic comes from Jonathan Hickman, who has had a reputation for relaunching Marvel quite a few times to great success, that's entirely possible, but let's examine it further. For one thing, Imperial is dealing with something that, while Marvel delves into more than most, even it is kind of apprehensive about: its larger celestial universe. The larger Marvel universe is more explored than in some other comic books, but to be honest is not something that's usually focused on because most people don't actually care about it. They're very Earth-centric. But Hickman seems to be taking an interesting approach with this, as he's primarily focusing on empires or characters that we already know about or have a commitment to. In particular, the stars of this series seem to be the Hulk family, which is in itself awesome. Most people love, obviously, Planet Hulk and that whole developmental storyline into World War Hulk, and we seem to be touching back on that at least a little bit. We also have Richard Rider's Nova, as well as the appearance and return of Professor Xavier and his daughter, and the larger Shi'ar Empire, plus some other characters in this as well, which is just fascinating. I think we even see Star-Lord in some of the advertising. But why do I say that this large-scale event, which Marvel has plenty of anyway, would possibly save it? Well, that's because Marvel generally lacks direction. Say what you want, Marvel does not usually tend to have a directional focus for its comics. As such, most of the time comic book imprints in the company tend to languish. Unless an individual writer/artist team had a good idea for their comic to begin with, most of them tend to be just publish here, insert villain of the week, so on and so forth. Don't get me wrong, there's always exceptions, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about the standard. There's a reason why the standard is, well, a standard. It's considered generic today, and yeah, Marvel Comics can feel pretty standard. But Imperial seems to be shifting in that direction. It's introducing both an interstellar mystery, but also interstellar conflict. It's making the various empires that we've known about in Marvel for a while matter. The Shi'ar, the Kree, obviously Sakaar, a lot of this seems to be being referenced. Even the new Wakandan interstellar empire, and I use the term new loosely, it's been around for a while, but still, if you're only movies or TV shows, it's new to you. But these should matter more. Realistically, Marvel should have a far, far larger reaching storyline around all of its characters around Earth for a few specific reasons, and it just has never materialized. Making these various interstellar empires matter could be the first step in that, and here's what we have to understand. This is adding actual stakes to the Marvel universe. I think that Marvel is at a crossways just like DC kind of is, but DC is finding its direction and Marvel still kind of languishes, especially because its Ultimates comic isn't doing as well as it wants right now. And in general, 616 tends to be where most people's attention is anyway, but they just don't know what to do with that larger universe. We get a larger crossover every couple months to a year and then nothing. Everybody's kind of left to their own devices. And you can't build good stories set in the same universe if nothing ever feels like it's set in the same universe with any kind of stake. I think it's a fantastic idea that it seems to be the main character we're building up for a lot of this, at least in part, is the Hulk. Yes, most people love, obviously, World War Hulk and Planet Hulk, and there's a reason for that. The Hulk as his own character is one of the most fascinating aspects of the character, but also because he tends to be a very interesting mix. He's more aggressive than Banner usually is, even though he is part of Banner, and at the same time, he's far more intelligent and cunning than the traditional Hulk monster is. This new Emperor Hulk, as he appears to be, is really kind of fascinating because it could be the bump that both the Hulk as a character needs. The guy hasn't really gotten a lot of good development in recent years, especially when he wasn't dead, but it could also be a good indication for what we need further in Marvel. The Hulk is one of the interesting characters because, unlike most Marvel characters, he's not incredibly overpowered from the beginning, but he's also not capped in his abilities. We have seen the Hulk evolve repeatedly, both through trained effort and through necessary circumstance. This is far in line with a lot of other fantasy, sci-fi, and stories that we find in other types of publications. It's not often seen in comic books. Usually characters in comic books are introduced as either incredibly OP or incredibly underpowered, and they tend to remain at those levels irregardless of plot development. This tends to be doubly true for Marvel because Marvel doesn't like to focus on anything large scale. Marvel always has its 10-year sliding timeline, and it kind of takes the woomph out of any sense of development. Of course, the upside of this is that it's Jonathan Hickman, and Hickman tends to hate the sliding timeline. You might actually get stories that matter in congruent form, sequentially told, and therefore meaning a great deal as they build upon each other. We're already being told in the advertisements for this that, it will reshape the Marvel universe. Obviously, Hulk is going to play a large role with that, as well as his family, as well as Nova. These are some of the very important celestial characters in the Marvel cosmos, and I think that honestly the Hulk is the perfect person to do this with because, as I said before, he can have that development, but he also kind of represents what realistically the pinnacle of a human can become. Hulk has fought, the celestial armor Iron Man and Thor, and while he doesn't usually win against Thor, it's also fair to say that usually the Hulk is being being hamstrung to some degree, because usually he's being limited by his personality or by Banner's direct interference or so on and so forth. We don't really know what a full-out Hulk could look like. Though give the Ultimates comic its credit, it's at least teasing the idea of what a Hulk that's absolutely in control could look like, and I really want to see our Hulk start to develop that level of power. But largely that's something that needs to happen with a lot more Marvel characters. Marvel is a very closed ceiling comic book series in a lot of ways. Characters, like I said before, OP or not, tend to find themselves stuck with the abilities they're given, and then not much is usually done to improve them. No sense of development in those characters because usually they don't gain new abilities. That's not always the case though with cosmic characters, so we could see that for personal development for quite a few of these important characters as well. And lastly, does this mean we could be entering a new quote-unquote Krakoa era? Because Krakoa was one of the most interesting and important things that Marvel did recently until they got rid of it. And honestly, Hickman has been pushing storylines like that for a while now. He just usually doesn't get to finish them with Marvel, so, you know, he's kind of Marvel's favorite writer they don't like to work with long term. Don't get me wrong, they love having him around for ideas, he just doesn't usually get to stick the landing on him because he doesn't get to actually finish the projects most of the time. But if Marvel wanted to, if they ever wanted to start introducing stakes, introducing the idea of how this series will impact both Earth and other important allied characters that we know of from the comics could be a great start to that.